monsters, madness, and magic.
All right, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here with a quick word before we dive in. Now, in this episode, I chat with actor, dancer, and producer Tami Stronach about the lasting legacy of the NeverEnding Story, her conflicted relationship with the film, growing up abroad, returning to the business with her movie Man and Witch, and more. As always, thank you all for listening out there, and without further ado, here you go. Tami, take us back in time. You're a youngster. Were you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all of the above?
I was definitely a fort builder. I like reading now, but I was, I moved to a lot of different countries. I was born in Iran because my parents were working there as archaeologists. So I spoke Persian, and then the revolution happened and we moved, and my mom was Israeli, so then we moved to Israel, and then we moved to England, and then we moved to America. So English is my third language.
Wow.
And I'm dyslexic. So if you want to traumatize a kid, try to make them read in lots and lots of different languages. So I always just found reading really stressful because A, I'm dyslexic, and B, it was like every 2 years it was like a new language, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's an exaggeration, but makes for a better story. So we'll go with it. I was very physical. I love to climb. I love to dance. I love to run. Everything was physical for me as a kid.
That's really awesome. That sounds like that both your parents are archaeologists. Did they meet on a dig or something like that? It sounds like a movie.
It's such an incredible story. I'm going to tell it to you because it's crazy. Like, they are crazy people. My father was head of the British Institute in Archaeological Studies in Tehran, and my mother flew there. Her specialty was gluing the shards of the pottery back together, kind of restoring old different pots and things. So she went to the main office, and she was, just in town, and she's like, "Hey, is there any room on the plane to go on the dig? I really want to see the dig site. I'm not here in any official capacity." And they asked my father, and he was like, "Absolutely not. There's no room on the dig plane. I have important people on the plane who donated money to the dig, and there's no room for some woman who comes out of nowhere and wants a seat on the plane." And so he left the office, and he's walking down the hall, and he sees my mom pass him, and he was like, was that the woman that wanted to be on the plane? Bump the person next to me off." And he bumped off this really important person that got very mad at him.
Well, it worked out, obviously.
It worked out. It was a good choice. And then they were inseparable for 3 days. They were on the dig site together, and they both really loved to be out in the field digging, and then they went to the market, and they were looking at these Persian rugs, and she wanted the same rug that he wanted. And then they just decided to get married so that they could share the rug. This is after 3 days.
Wow.
Could you I can't even imagine if I called my parents and I told them their own story as me. They would kill me. They'd be like, "Absolutely not," So yeah, they had a whirlwind, crazy romance on a dig site.
Wow, that's the story I was hoping for, to be honest with you. Now, did you ever have any desire to go that route yourself? Having two parents in the field, any interest or anything? No,
not at all. If you grow up the daughter of archaeologists, you have no interest. I had to sit and the digs were so boring as a kid. They're just endless mounds of dirt, and it's hours and hours and hours. And then someone finds this seemingly, piece of rock. Looks like every other rock that isn't in the dig site, And just remember as a kid, like having to sit through these long slideshows my father would give of like what we found on the dig site. And it was like, well, you see this stone that was the cornerstone to this building, and, cut to 3 hours later, and then we found this stone, Like, me and my sister are like, oh. So it sounds really awesome. And what they loved it. My parents what I got from my parents is to be passionate about work. Like they loved their work, and they dedicated all their time, and every conversation, every breakfast, every lunch, every dinner was around that topic for them. So I never wanted to go into archaeology, but I very much absorbed the idea that it's possible to pursue things that you really care about and passionate about. Like you should take that risk. And obviously that's a scary thing to do, and it could not work out, but that it's worth trying to do that.
Right. And where would you say that sort of the artistic roots come from? Was there anyone in your family that was a performer, any siblings, friends, or anything like that?
So my father, it turns out, I didn't really know this about him, but later in life, I sort of learned more things about him. And we'll get to Man of Witch later, which we shot in Scotland. But I ended up sending my daughter to Gordonston, which is the school where my father went. And it turns out that at Gordonston, he did Shakespeare plays in abandoned castles in the Highlands of Scotland.
Oh, man.
So he was literally like ahead of New York by like decades. They were doing like site-specific Shakespearean castles,
Shit.
Like, yeah, it was so cool. I was like, oh my God, you got to do that, So he loved drama, and I think he was probably really good at it. And my mom was a gymnast, so I'm a dancer, and I feel like I got that physical side but my father was a runner, so he was athletic. But dancing, I think, came more from my mom, and acting more from my father.
Gotcha. Man, that's cool. So when you think back to formative films and TV shows that you grew up on personally, what comes to mind?
I mean, I had like such a limited array. I guess we all did back then. Like I'm getting close to my mid 50s here. I'm turning 53 next year. So, the shows we watched when I was little in Iran with my sister was like The Bionic Man. Do you even know what that is?
I do.
You do? You know what that, like,
Yeah.
Nobody even knows what that is. And it was all dubbed. It was all in Persian because they dubbed them, So my sister told me that actors have to be really good at languages because every country we moved, we saw the show in a different language, and we didn't realize it was dubbed. We just thought actors were like super smart. They're like, speak Russian and French and Persian and English. I was like, oh my gosh. It was only later, when I was older, I was like, oh, it was all dubbed. But so I like those really cheesy shows like Mission Impossible. I don't know. I watched Star Trek with my dad. We were like big Trekkies, me and him. Yeah, those were the shows. I mean, there were only like 6 shows on TV back then. It was like everyone watched the same thing.
Do you remember the first movie that you saw in the movie theater?
Superman.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, it really was. It was incredible. It was like thrilling. It was like, yeah, it was such a good movie. And I went with my cousin. We were very little. And when they put Superman in the spaceship naked, you know how he's like a little baby? She was just screaming out, he's gonna be cold. He needs a blanket. Like, it was like, we were like yelling at the screen, like we didn't have the etiquette yet,
Now, was that dubbed too? Were you?
I don't think they dubbed Superman, because maybe they did, but I spoke the language, so I don't remember. But I remember it just being incredible. And, Christopher Reeves is, so amazing. Yeah.
Now, what about music? What's records were spinning around your house when you were growing up?
You don't want to know the records in my house growing up. You won't. Gugoosh was a Persian. Like, you're not gonna. Let's go to high school.
Okay, okay.
We're gonna have a better time. When I was in high school, like every high school kid, I got really into music, and I don't think I had very special tastes. I liked what most people liked back then, but I liked, you know, Pink Floyd and REM and the Beatles. I was a huge Beatles fan. And I liked, Bob Marley, and like I liked all the things kids in high school like. And I still have all of my high school records, and I just got a record player, and it's really sad because, you have this time in your life where you have time for music and you go to record stores all the time, and then you kind of get busy and you work and you're trying to survive and you don't have time to go to record stores, or at least I didn't. So my musical tastes haven't developed at all since high school.
Nothing wrong with that in my book.
And now I have a record player, and I'm literally just listening to all the same stuff like that I listened to then. Is really sad. But yeah, I like old music.
Mm. Were you a concert goer, live show goer, or anything like that?
I would have liked to have been. There was more financial, like we didn't really have the means to do that. So if there was something like in town, I saw like Tracy Chapman live, which was amazing. And I saw like just a few things, but I didn't see that much live music, which is a shame. Live music is an incredible experience. Like, if I could do it again, I would go to more shows.
Yeah. I see there's a guitar hanging over your shoulder. Did you pick up an instrument or anything?
This is my husband's guitar. I did play in high school very badly, and then I gave it up, so no. But my husband plays guitar, and we're so cheesy. We like do sing-alongs in our house, and we love to sing. I love to sing, so we do that regularly, and he plays.
Now, when I asked you the icebreaker question, you said that you read now. So what do you like to read these days?
Oh, yeah. So now I like to escape reality. I find reality very difficult to cope with.
Yeah.
Everything's fantasy for me. Like, if I'm gonna like curl up into bed and like be with a book, like it is literally gonna be with a fantasy book. So, and this is really kind of funny. I don't know if I should admit this or not, but my daughter is 14 and she loves YA fantasy books. So oftentimes I'll just read whatever she's reading so that then we can talk about it.
Right.
Because she wants to be an author.
Mm.
So we just did the Shadow and Bone series. I don't know, I read Fourth Wing recently. I mean, it's all just really fun, escapist stuff. And then I'll read like really like nerdy, like I'm reading AI snake oil right now just because I don't understand AI at all. And so I'm trying to understand when it works and when it doesn't and what all the implications are. So I'll kind of temper my fantasy escapist fun with like one factual book to try to ground myself in the ever shifting incomprehensibility of life.
Yeah, I find AI fascinating, but growing up on Terminator simultaneously terrifying.
Yeah, right.
We're kind of programmed to be like, oh no, 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 no.
Yeah, I think our generation is like particularly afraid, but it's also all going that way. So I think it's important to understand like how it can be used for good and how it can be used for ill, and when it's doing things that enhance our ability to think critically and allow us to gather information in a more productive way or jog our imaginations to elicit some kind of creative activity, and when it's just replacing the function of thinking so that we sort of exercise that muscle less and less, which is sort of a terrifying, that would be a terrifying outcome.
Yeah, just a side note. Speaking of AI, like AI art is a very rocky road and stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
but I recently found a editing program, like a video editing program that's AI. And of course, doing the podcast, I have to sit here for hours and like equalize the audio and stuff. I put it in this AI program, and it studio quality audio in 10 seconds, and I'm just like,
That's great. Like, I
yeah,
think that's great because then your time is freed up to do more creative things.
hmm,
So, like, I love that use of AI. I had to write something recently, and I'm so old. This is going to date me so bad. And everybody I knew was like, just put it in a AI, just put it in AI and put the prompts in and put it in AI. And it was an application for something. And I just can't because I'm reading a book about AI. I'm clearly not on the cutting edge. Like, what is this? And and I spent like 2 weeks writing this thing, but I feel like what I started out wanting to say and what I ended up saying were different because the process of forcing the language out of me asked me to re-examine some of the assumptions that I was making. And so if I had put it into AI, I would have ended up with the prompt that I began with, I
mm,
think. And whereas like the struggle of finding the way to say it actually shifted the thought I was trying to say. So I think that struggle is part of creativity. And without struggle, we often don't hone the next layer as well. So those are the kinds of things that I'm skeptical about. But oh my gosh, like grammar, spelling, studio quality sound, like hallelujah, great, fantastic.
right, agreed. Agreed, definitely. Save me 5 hours a day. What? So a question I like to ask everyone is, what scared you as a kid?
Ghosts.
Mm, that's scary. Was there an experience or something for that reason, or was it just in general?
I think I went to see Poltergeist by myself, like in the theater. Like this is the 80s. Like your parents would just drop you off at like rated R movies and like you just be like traumatized for years. They're like, oh, it made you tougher. No, I think I saw a couple of scary ghost movies and we used to play that like as kids. Like we would like freak ourselves out. Like, did you see the eyes of that painting move? And you were making it up. You didn't. But then, like, after enough of that, suddenly you would see it, and you like, and then it would be like not fun anymore. Like, we don't want to play this anymore. So I mean, they scared me, but they scared me in the way that kids kind of look for a thrill. Like you want to feel alive, so you want to feel scared, and then you don't want to feel it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, would you classify yourself as a theater kid? Were you doing dance and doing plays from early on?
I was, yeah. So because I moved around a lot, uh, the way that I created home wherever I went was in the arts. Like, because basically, if you walk into a room with a bunch of kids that are playing theater games, it's the same games no matter where you are in the world, and it's the same vibe, and it's just like a very like you become friends really quickly. So I was in plays and dancing from the beginning.
Mm. So was your first time on stage, was it as an actress or a dancer?
It depends what you count as my first time on stage. I would force my parents, like archaeologist friends, to sit and watch my rendition of Swan Lake at 2.
That counts.
So that was a dance. They were very accommodating, these poor guests. Yeah, and then I was, and then I started sort of, I was in all the school plays. I didn't care what I was. I remember being cast as a tree when I got to Israel because I couldn't speak the language very well, so I couldn't have a speaking part or whatever. Maybe they just didn't want to give me a speaking part, so I was a tree. Stage left, that was my big moment. And I remember like taking it really seriously, because for me, art is like the most serious thing I can do. It's the thing I care the most about. It's like, it just means so much to me. So I would be the tree, and then I would sort of feel the wind rustle, like, because the trees are alive, and the teacher would be like, don't move, you're a tree. And then I came home and I like cried to my mom, and I'm like, Mom, that is not true. Trees are not still.
You were right.
And I got into a big fight with the teacher, and my mom came to the school and she's like, just please let my daughter I'll tell her that the wind is very soft, so she moves barely a muscle, but like for Tami to be a tree, like she has to be a tree, like
It's just a light breeze.
So then I just the softest of windblown feelings. Yeah.
So, was stage fright ever an issue for you? Did you have to overcome it, or?
No. I love being on stage. I love performing. I think I probably am one of those odd people that feels almost like more myself inside of that kind of an environment than outside,
Mm-hmm. So, just curious, where do you think it comes from for actors that do have some serious stage fright?
Well, I think if you really care about something, it means a lot to you. So it probably comes from how passionate they are about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think that it can come from a sense of real import. I think for me, and I think this is true for everyone, adrenaline and stage fright are actually the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a mental shift in perspective, where you're like, oh my God, this is great. I feel sick to my stomach and I'm terrified. Okay. This means I am excited to be here. Like, it would be horrible if you went on stage and didn't feel all of those feelings. Like, I think so maybe I do have stage fright.
You shifted it.
And maybe I just like it.
Yeah.
Maybe I just like stage fright. Maybe I feel like kind of like ghosts. It's like you feel alive,
When it comes to, being on, film or screen versus the stage, do you have a preference? Because a lot of actors, of course the money is better on film, but, they like to feed off the live audience, and it's a much more interactive experience.
Definitely. I went into live performance when I graduated from my conservatory because of that. I really liked live shows. I like the community. It's so interesting how you can do the exact same thing, and depending on who's on the audience, the laugh is in a totally different place, or it's a collaboration with the audience there. And to have when you get a good audience, it's so incredible, because they're working with you. There's just nothing that feels as good as that. So I definitely really enjoy live performance. But film is a really amazing medium because you can watch it over and over and over again. And the permanence of that is kind of remarkable,
Mm-hmm.
So, and to go back to, so I did, Man and Witch, came out last summer, but we filmed it 4 years ago because it took so long to make. And I hadn't been on camera for, so long. Just a ridiculous amount of time, so basically almost 40 years, so I was so scared that it would feel different
Mm-hmm.
than acting on stage, and that but it actually didn't. To me, it didn't feel that different. And I think it's probably because we were an indie film with like a really like limited budget. So we had one or two takes, period. So we weren't like one of those film sets where it's like, okay, take 54. Can you move your nostril to the left a little on this word? You know, it felt very much like a play. Like this is the delivery, it's this take, and then we're moving on. So, you know, when I did the NeverEnding Story, it was like the same 3 minutes, like so many times. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they had so many takes to choose from. So I think it really depends on the scale of the production, and if you're in like a run and gun indie film, all of that theater work is crucial because there aren't endless takes. You really have to treat it like a live show.
Have you still been doing any stage plays and stuff over the years?
Yes, no, I've done a lot of stage plays, and I think now that the film is done and I'm sort of I'm so exhausted, I'm resetting from all of it. It was such a whirlwind to make it, and then we didn't intend to distribute it. Like we thought somebody would come and buy it and do all that work for us, but the industry really changed, and everyone on the streaming end like started to shrink their content, and it became really apparent that if we could either just give it away for nothing and for the great pleasure of somebody else, you know, getting eyes on it, you get a nice little pat on the shoulder and no money, which is insane, you know. It's like that's what the industry's turned into. It's like, or we could retain the rights and distribute it ourselves. So I ended up forming a distribution company and having to learn how to navigate that whole thing. So the whole producing side of that project ended up taking way more of my time than the actual creative side. So now I'm desperate to get into a play. I'm looking for some theater work, and I just really want to go simple. Yeah, back to the stage.
Yeah. Now, it's funny you said a few minutes ago that it's great when you have a good audience, but what have you had experience with a bad audience? Any hecklers or throwing tomatoes or anything like that?
I mean, that's sort of exciting. If you've like made someone that mad, you know you're doing something right, you know? No, it's more just like, you know, you tour down to Florida and like half the audience is asleep, you know? And
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad we provided a good place for everyone to nap. Like feel really good about all the work we did. It's more just like when people are kind of zoned out or sleeping or on their phone. Like if there isn't like you need to feel them reaching out to you, you know? And if they're not, it's really hard.
Yeah. So obviously, you know, if you're acting on stage, you have an idea of how the audience is responding. How do you split that into, you know, I'm up here, I'm an actor, I have to do my job, but you know, the audience is great or the audience is bad? Or how are you taking that all in and doing the acting?
I think that in my experience, acting is listening at its best. Like the ability to listen is at the heart of acting. And if you are trying to come up with how you're going to say your line, you've already lost the thread of the scene. You have to listen to who's talking to you and really listen to them, and then not think about how you're going to respond. Because if you're listening, you're going to respond organically, right? And so a lot of acting is trying to just like undo acting.
Yeah.
It's like just trying to listen and then authentically, so the more you can listen, the better it is. And then you're just like riding somebody else's, you're just like riding what they gave you, you know, as opposed to trying to like muscle the scene somewhere. And it's the same with the audience. Like you do something and the audience laughs and you listen and you're like, oh, they like that. Okay, I can do more of that. Like it's, or, you know, like, or they're really leaning in and you're like, oh, I can slow this down. Like they want the pace, they want to lean, you know, they want to slow this down. So So the whole job of acting is deep listening in every direction.
I speak with a lot of actors, and most of them do film and stage acting. And you mentioned the permanence of film, but a lot of them point to the impermanence of the stage is why they prefer it, because you've got this long run with this character. Maybe the next time I'll deliver it this way, and you have weeks and weeks, and by the end of it, you've perfected it essentially, and you can just roll with it.
That is why it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And there's more time, usually there's more rehearsal time. There's more time as a group to kind of figure out the conventions of the piece. So as you're kind of wearing more roles in the sense that you're kind of building it with a team. I think there's a bigger sense of community. For me in the film this time, it was hard because I was a producer and I'm used to just being in the cast and having fun with everybody. And I couldn't really do that. I had to like go back to my room and answer all the emails and get mad at people and scream about why something wasn't happening, and everyone's like having, tea and laughing. And I'm just like, oh man, I can't do that, So there's a camaraderie that's really, I think, probably possible on a film set, but I was just working.
With Man and Witch, you're saying, obviously it's an indie project and you guys are doing it yourself. But then I look at some of the names. You got Eddie Izzard, Sean Astin, Christopher Lloyd. How do you bring all that together yourself?
I mean, we're insane. We just reached, like, we really, really just reached for ridiculous heights, and we were sure we would be turned down. And just, it was somehow, I think it was like this amazing convergence of things where it was the pandemic and a lot of people weren't working and they were just so bored. They were just like, fine, let's do this. Like, I just want something to do, And then also specifically Sean Astin and Christopher Lloyd, they are just like the real deal. Like, those men just need to act. Christopher Lloyd is always in a project. He's in his 80s and his calendar was so full. Like, we could barely find a day to film with him because it was like so full, They're just always working. So, and I think that, so in addition to the pandemic, just to like the work ethic of those people, they just want to work. There was also the fact that our script was not created by AI.
That's a plus.
It was kind of a wild, quixotic. There was clearly like no committee that was like reining it in. It was like, there's talking animals and there's, it had a kind of, I think, wildness to it. And that, I think Sean Astin actually said this to my husband. He was like, I am so excited to be working on something that doesn't feel like it's just been like sifted through a million filters until it's like so generic. Like,
it's raw.
It's just,
in a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, this is weird and fun and like it's so refreshing to get a script that doesn't feel just pulverized into generic submission.
Yeah. So I think I've read before that you've said when it comes to your audition for the NeverEnding Story that you didn't know that it was a film. You thought you were auditioning for a play.
Yeah, I had no idea really what I was auditioning for. Someone saw me in an acting class and asked me to come to the audition, and I just went, somebody wants me to go, like, okay, So it's really, the older I get, the more I understand how kind of crazy it was that I fell into that opportunity and how special it was and what a special story it was. And sometimes when it's your own life, it doesn't seem unusual to you because it's your life. So it seems normal, But it is kind of crazy, actually. So it was a really happy accident.
Now, when did you realize that it was a big film? Was it the first day on set, or did you get any heads up beforehand?
I still didn't realize it was a big film because I went to the set and my mom didn't realize it was a big film. She was like, "Okay, we'll fly to Germany for the summer and we'll do this film." And she's like, "It's probably going to be like just like shown in Germany or something." And so I didn't really know that it was going to get released globally. Like it was a German production. Like I didn't really I just went to do my part. And then I should have known because it was the most expensive film ever made in Germany and the sets were amazing and the studios were amazing, but I had nothing to compare it to. I just thought every film on the planet is like this. That is not true. I know that now. So, I just sort of like took it all as it came and I just accepted it all as it came. And then when the NeverEnding Story was released in the US, it didn't make a big splash. It wasn't that popular when it first landed. It became popular because of the VHS.
Yeah.
And it was sort of like one of those movies people would buy on their VHS, and it was like nobody knew what to watch at Christmas and nobody wanted to argue, so they put in the NeverEnding Story. It was like a family movie. I feel like it just sort of like over time it became a bigger and bigger film. And so it took me a while to understand the scope of it, and also just the legacy that the author Michael Ende had in Germany. But yeah, so it really was you can just say I was a little dim. It took me a while. I did not understand what was happening. The thing that then I started to get a lot of fan mail, and a lot of some people coming to the house and stuff. And that's when I realized that I was in something a lot bigger than I had expected. And then I kind of freaked out.
Yeah. People coming to the house is not good. No, that's not okay. So I've spoken with your co-star, Noah Hathaway, and of course, he's on screen a lot and had to do a lot of stunts, but he's pretty transparent that he didn't have a great time filming.
I know.
It was pretty hard on him.
Yeah.
Did you have a similar experience? Could you see that, or what was your perspective on it?
We just had very different, it's almost like two siblings growing up in the same house can have like a vastly different experience. And it's like both experiences are true,
Yeah.
I wasn't on set for 2 years. I went for a summer, I didn't have any stunts. I sat on a bed. It was very safe for me.
Yeah.
Our experiences couldn't have been more opposite. I didn't have the pressure to be the breadwinner for my family. I was not a Hollywood kid. This was a fun summer jaunt my parents reluctantly agreed to let me do. And they didn't want to talk about the money. They didn't want to get me an agent afterwards. It was like, we're going to do this fun, weird thing in Germany, and then we're coming home to our life, So I just feel like the pressures that he was under and the physical duress and, very, very different. I definitely wanted to continue acting after the film. But I think partially because my mom had watched Noah's difficulties on the film, and started to ask different people about it. She was like, I'm not sure this is psychologically healthy for a child. And maybe you would do great, but maybe you wouldn't. And I wouldn't be able to live with myself if, as an adult, you felt traumatized and sort of like chewed up by the Hollywood machine, and I let it happen.
Yeah.
So, I think we had very different experiences, and and it's such a shame that his was not positive.
Yeah, and just the fact that it's, like you said, it's a classic family movie and it's a very inspirational, feel good movie. And then one of the main characters has such a, negative outlook on his experience with it. But I did ask him that, since you've gone to conventions, you see the movie's impact, you see people coming up to you crying, has that changed your relationship with the film? And he said yes. So that is a silver lining to it, that he has at least reconciled it that way. So that's good to hear.
That is great to hear. Yeah. I think, it's interesting. Like for me, going to conventions was also a really nice experience because I think I was sort of hiding from the NeverEnding Story for a long time. I chose stage and not film because I partly just really wanted to dive into the craft of acting and not deal with the sort of industry side of it all. I still don't feel I have the best personality for that, and I just want to make stuff. I don't want to sell stuff. So that's not exactly aligned with the whole machine. But going to conventions, like initially I was kind of afraid of fans. I had some sort of freaked out experiences, some stalkers when I was little, and also just like when I was little, like people who knew you were in the film and then they would just kind of treat you differently than 10 minutes before when they didn't know you were in the film. And I always found that switch like very confusing because I was still the same person. So I didn't understand how this one experience I had like shifted me. And so I was like, you know what, I need to like make art this much more kind of like contained thing on stage where like it's a very human experience and cathartic. But going to the convention and meeting people and seeing the impact of the film, I kind of felt guilty because I was like, oh my gosh, all this time I have not really been recognizing how lucky I am to like be a part of something that has moved so many people. And I need to change my attitude, and I need to like listen to these stories and be so grateful that they're sharing these stories with me. And I loved it. I loved meeting people on the convention, and it totally shifted. Like, so in that way, I'm similar to Noah. Like it shifted my relationship to like kind of fear of fame. I was like, this is silly. Like we're all people. Stories are about connecting people. And that's where the heart of this is. And just focus on that. That's where the good stuff is, So I was able to move to that space, which was actually really healing for me.
Good to hear. Funny enough, when I told my wife that I was going to be recording with you today, she didn't even let me finish before she started like belting into the theme song of the movie.
Cute.
So, before going into the actual filming, were you aware of the novel at all? Did you familiarize yourself with it?
Yes. I definitely read it. Yeah, and I loved it. And, like I said, I was a slow reader, but I read it and I made all kinds of notes. And I loved the fact that the ink was different colors. And I was totally taken with the story.
I don't know if you know, because you said you were kind of hiding from the film for such a long time, but a point of contention amongst fans for a long time was what is Bastian, the name that Bastian is yelling at the end of the movie. And I did not know what it was until yesterday, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
Because everything's got subtitles now, so I figured it would all be there.
I was like, oh, I can hear it clearly now. But as a kid, you're like rewinding the VHS and you're like putting your ear, this like, what is he saying? Like, was the Moonchild name in the script? Because it seems to me like just that it was meant to be a fourth wall breaking thing, to where you insert the name as the viewer.
You're spot on. That's what Wolfgang wanted, and he actually told Barrett that he could come up with whatever name he wanted, and Barrett ended up choosing Moonchild, which was in the script, but he was allowed to, he could have said any name he wanted to. But he
Gotcha.
didn't. Yeah, yeah. If he was a naughtier child, we don't know what the outcome would have been, but he was very well behaved, good child.
So something else that Noah mentioned was that I think he said the director changed prior to filming. You know, had to just go through all the auditioning processes over and over again. Did you have to audition a lot, or was it just a?
No, they were really struggling with casting the Empress, and I think I was like the last piece of the puzzle. So everything was kind of set to go, and they were still looking for that person. I had to audition 3 times, so in San Francisco and in LA, and then again in Germany.
Okay, gotcha. So we were talking about Man and Witch earlier. Is it available to watch now? Is it on streaming
Yep.
service?
Yeah, yeah, it's on Amazon. Just type Man and Witch in on Amazon Prime, and it'll pop up.
So from you guys wanting to do that project, writing the script and all, what was the from start to finish? How long did it take you?
4 years and so many gray hairs. It's all dyed. You'll never know how gray this project made me.
What was the inspiration for the script? Was there anything you pulled from specifically, or was it just a story you've had floating in your head for a while?
So the story is really a little bit like my my husband had this idea for like a 10-minute short of a man who's cursed in love, and he goes to a witch and she gives him 3 impossible tasks. Um, I don't know if I'm supposed to reveal this, but I'm in a very talkative mood today. Um, you know, I made my husband jump through a lot of impossible hoops before we got married.
It happens.
And you need to make sure the man has substance, that he can go the distance, and that he has the qualities. What are you going to do? So I think it's a sort of fantasy version of our love story in a way. And it both pokes fun at me by casting me as the witch and also celebrates me by bringing me back to the big screen, which is something that he knew that I wanted to do and I probably would never have done on my own. And it's super romantic. He finished the script and gave it to me on my birthday. And he was like, we're going to make this thing, and bucket list, you're going to be on the big screen, and we're going to do it ourselves. So no industry machine, just us, and the like just the creative process fully under our control.
Mm-hmm.
So little did I know how insane that was. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like I'm signing off the next 4 years of my life to wear a VFX special effects hat. Tammy's directing the VFX, like things that never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would be in charge of. It was very challenging and terrifying, and I learned so much. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and we got to do it together, as a
Yeah.
husband and wife, and we got to do it in the pandemic. So that was really interesting too. Like, yeah, it was really like, how sometimes life imitates art. Like the script is about never giving up and doing impossible tasks. And the film was about never giving up and doing impossible tasks. Like I felt like we were in like, it was like a meta version.
Yeah.
Like the universe is like, it'll never get made, and your set blew over, and your actor canceled, and now you're getting a different actor, and it's tomorrow, and you're, like the level of like obstacles was just like nothing I've ever experienced. The film is insane. It's insane.
So now that it's done, do you still have that itch to scratch, or are you satisfied now?
I don't know. I think I need like a break. Like I'm super exhausted, if I'm being really honest. And I went to Czech Republic, and I made this like really cute theater piece, like a site-specific theater piece for like little kids, and I want to do some kind of play this summer. I think I need to like, I don't know, like drink some like chicken broth or something, like I need to like, I need to do some smaller, nourishing, like projects where it's like if something goes wrong, it's like the printer didn't work, the flyers aren't printing, as opposed to like $1 million got flushed to toilet, like no, that never happened. That never happened. I'm exaggerating. But pandemic costs, like just the price of like making sure everyone on set like was tested, like you have no idea, like it made the film so much more expensive. Like there were just so many insane obstacles, we had to do crowd scenes, but you couldn't be close, you had to be 6 feet apart. So it's like a crowd scene and everyone has their masks on and they take it off for filming. And you're like, well, how do you choreograph a crowd scene where everyone's 6 feet apart? This is like the thinnest town ever. There's like 7 people in this town because like the kinds of things that we were dealing with were so insane. So I think I would like to go back again because I've just learned so much that it would be like a shame not to have a chance to like use it again.
Yeah.
I feel like I got like a graduate school degree in this whole process. And, but I think I'm going to take a little time to go back to my roots and back to live performance, until my chi fully recovers.
Now, have you ever considered teaching dance or acting or anything like that?
Oh my gosh, I teach all the time. I have been teaching since I graduated from my conservatory program. I was a modern and choreography teacher at all the professional schools here in New York. Like you never make enough money just acting or dancing. You always have to supplement with something. So a lot of people went into bartending and other things, but I went into teaching. So I've been teaching for as long as I can remember. I was a university professor, a tenure track professor at Marymount Manhattan College for 5 years, and then I did another 7 as an adjunct faculty member. I teach now. I'm teaching, I have a home studio and I teach yoga at a variety of different places in Brooklyn, and probably go back to some adjunct work at a university if I get bored. So teaching's a huge part of my life, and I love teaching and I love mentoring young choreographers. One of my favorite things to do is to mentor young artists.
Great. You mentioned earlier that your kid wants to be a writer, and they like young adult stuff. So did you introduce them to the NeverEnding Story? Did they discover it organically? Like how did that work?
Oh my God, I have a little video of her. I should have filmed more, but I was just, I don't know, I didn't. So I didn't introduce it to her for a long time. And I think I showed it to her when she was 8 because I didn't want her to not like it. And I felt like if I showed it to her before then, she might get scared because there are some scary sections and she gets scared in movies. So I waited. And, she knew that I was in it, and a bunch of people had come from various German TV to interview me. But what are you doing now? And so like there'd been a lot of like various like movie crews in our house, and she'd seen me doing interviews, and she was pretty hilarious. They're like, what do you think of your mom being in the NeverEnding Story? And she's like, I don't think about my mom being in the NeverEnding Story. And they're like, do you think you have the best mom ever? And she's like, well, how could I possibly answer that? I've never lived in the house of all the different families in the world. So what kind of comparison could I possibly have? I mean, I think she's a great mom. Like she was just like answering the question. Not at all how they wanted her to answer them.
She was a pro.
No sound bites there. Like everything had an if, and, or but, everything was like, so I was like, oh, wow. So anyway, but I finally showed it to her, so she didn't think it was a big deal, and she knew that I was in it, and she thought it was really weird that people would come to the house and interview me about this thing I did a gajillion years ago. Like, well, who cares, So I finally showed it to her, and she loved it.
Good.
Yay! I was so worried she wouldn't like it. And there's this incredibly cute video. Like I filmed her from the side when my character is saying, call my name, and I just have this really cute video of her just like squealing, like, say it! Why doesn't he say it? He could just say it, And it was a really sweet little moment.
That's awesome. So, Tami, what would you say is the best acting advice that you've received, and who gave it to you?
Oh yeah, so I didn't make up this thing about listening. I took acting lessons from an incredible teacher called Laura Esterman. She taught at the Uta Hagen studio here in New York. And she was the one that explained to me that acting is listening. And it sounds so simple to listen. And I really think it's hard. And one of the reasons I love acting so much is that if you are forced to listen in a space that's artistic, you practice the muscle of listening in a space in regular life. And, that's not easy to do for any of us, definitely, myself included. And I feel like if somehow human beings could all get better at listening, we would have better art and a better world.
Right. Well said. So I like to, near the end, I like to wrap up with this question, but we kind of touched on this a bit earlier, but have you ever had an experience that you would consider supernatural, paranormal, or encountered an event you can't explain?
Wow. What an amazing question.
I ask it near the end because usually people loosen up. They don't think I'm crazy.
No, good. Wait, paranormal or what else?
Or just an event that you can't explain. Has anything happened like that?
Oh my gosh. I can't share this one.
Okay.
Wait, let me scroll through.
Okay.
Yeah, that one I can't. I definitely have. Trying to think of one that I can share. I mean, all right, I'll just preface this by saying that I think it's like our job every single day to like recognize how extraordinary the world is and how the ordinary is like a complete illusion. Like the fact that everything exists is already paranormal weirdness.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like it's everything is, and that like, it's such a strange thing how we numb ourselves to how extraordinary everything is, and how much conscious effort it takes to be sort of newly awed by all the encounters. So I kind of think every single day I'm a little bit floored at like the weirdness of it all, of existence. All right, I will share this little funny story. I will share it.
Okay.
So my mom was a prankster. She's a very, very cheeky lady. And when my father and her got married, she sewed like the bottom of his pajama legs together one day, and he came back and he tried to put his pajama legs and he fell over, and she would do these things. She just thought they were hilarious. She was just a prankster. And one day at a very important function at the British Institute of Archaeological Studies, the sort of I think it was a mayor at the time of Israel came to Iran to this all these dignitaries and functionaries, and my father said to her, well, how can I say hello to him? Can you please tell me in Hebrew how you say like, hello, nice to meet you? And she proceeded to, I'm just going to say it because this is who she was. She proceeded to teach him how to say, hello, you have a great ass. And so my very proper British father goes up to the prime minister. Oh, yes, hello, I'm David Stronach. I run the British Institute of Archaeological Studies. And in his, terrible Hebrew, he proceeds to say, hello, you have a great ass. And the guy bursts out laughing. And he clocks my mom across the room. And he's like, oh, your wife. Anyway, it went over very well. She also had, like, good reading the room. You know what I mean? Like she knew like when it was okay to be a jokester and when it wasn't.
Yeah, she knew to be cool with it.
She knew, and she knew when not to do it. But I've given you the framework of my mother. She's a jokester, right?
Right.
So we went to spread her ashes at the beach where she grew up, and she swam every day. And it was 24 of us all on this beach. And we all had her ashes, and we went out to the water and, you know, kind of said a little prayer for her to put the ashes in the water. And my
unknown caller.
My husband, I suddenly hear him go like, ah! And he just got like tripped in the water, like something like the wave just grabbed his feet and he just got completely wiped out in the water. And I was like, oh my God. And in my heart of hearts, I was like, oh my God, Mom, I can't believe you did that. And then, you know, we finished this very meaningful ceremony. We went home, and then just like many, many years later, my husband and I were eating dinner, and he was like, you know, just very casually was like, yeah, and you know, that time when we did the ashes and your mom dunked me. I mean, you know, she just was so tricky. And I was like, oh, you thought that was her too?
Wow.
So we'll never know. We'll never know. Maybe he lost his footing. Maybe a current just came in. But in that moment, I just felt like her sparkling, trickster, cheeky Tootie, like we called her Tootie nature. Just, she had to just pull one last prank.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So, well, Tami, just to put a bow on this thing here, is there anything on the horizon you want to share? Anything coming up? Any where to watch the movies?
Not at present. I know that the NeverEnding Story sequel is coming up. You know about that, right?
No.
Oh yeah, there is a really incredible production company called Seesaw. I love everything they produce. I don't know if you've seen it. They did something called Slow Horses with Gary Oldman. It's like a spy thing. Literally everything they do is just incredible. And, you know, everyone's been trying to get the rights to the NeverEnding Story for years and years and years. Leonardo DiCaprio tried and failed, and, you know, everyone, and they couldn't get the rights. And Seesaw has managed to secure the rights from the Ende Foundation Institute, or the Ende Foundation, I guess. So I know that they're working on 3 new films based on that IP.
Wow.
Yes.
I'm in the dark. I did not know that.
Yes. So I'm so excited about like who was given this creative mandate, because I know a lot of people will say, oh, you know, don't remake a classic, like leave it be. But I really don't think that's in the spirit of what Michael Ende wanted. He wants this story to reach new generations, and creativity is good, period.
It's never ending.
It's never ending. Like, it needs to be recreated, you know? So I'm all for it. I think, you know, if it was in the wrong hands, I'd be disappointed, but it's not in the wrong hands. It's in the right hands. So I don't know. I have my fingers crossed for some kind of cameo or something to do with that. But who knows? The trickster gods will tell.
There we go. Well, Tami, I've had a great time talking with you. Like, again, big fan. Thank you for giving me some of your time.
Thank you so much, Justin. And I really appreciate you interviewing me and asking me about
everything.
Man and witch and life and everything else.
All right. Bye-bye now. Have a good day.